Hi Aditya and hi Yash. Thank you so much for being on our platform today to talk about Revoteen. I'll just start by introducing you. Aditya is a junior at a school in the Bay Area and the CEO of Revoteen. Revoteen is a platform with more than 4,000 users available on the Google Play Store and the App Store for Android and iOS, and is a platform for students to find and connect with opportunities that align with their interests. We're also joined by Yash, who is a computer science student, a software developer, and the head of app development at Revoteen. So thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to start with the first question. So the first question is basically if you could give us a brief background about the conceptualization of the idea for Revoteen.
Sure, Aditya here. First off, thanks for having us. So Revoteen started back in May 2020, and essentially this was back when the coronavirus pandemic had first begun and everything was moving virtual. So essentially, we were looking for summer opportunities, internships, summer programs, things like that, where we could involve ourselves as students to make more of an impact. And we noticed it was very, very difficult to find these opportunities. We looked at LinkedIn, Instagram, all sorts of social media platforms, all sorts of websites. But it was very hard for us to find these opportunities because of the saturation on these platforms, where it was these opportunities either were not non-existent, or the opportunities that were there were not tailored towards students or the interests of students, and it was very hard to find these things. So essentially, when we had this process of the struggles of trying to find opportunities, we came up with the idea of, what if there was a single centralized platform for students where students could network with each other, discover opportunities tailored to their interests, and it would make the lives of students a lot easier, help them make impacts, and kind of just empower them in general. So that was how the conceptualization behind Revoteen began.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Okay, so now you've got the idea. What were your next steps going from here? Like, what was the first thing you did to get started with the project? And was it the app development? What was the first bucket you filled?
So prior to even like starting any coding, any development whatsoever, you kind of want a structure. What exactly are we going to cater to our customers, right? What features are we going to have? What's the feature roadmap? All those things are very important before we even start developing the actual code itself. So I think the first initial steps that we thought of were, okay, what features would our customers really like? What are high school students in our demographic really looking for in an application like this? And those are, once we established those first steps, we like did a bunch of surveys, a bunch of forms, talked to high schoolers that we know. And once we figured out what they really needed, we decided to go ahead and start coding. So that was like the next step in terms of developing like the application from a technical standpoint, knowing what features you need to build first, and then going ahead and getting started with the actual coding and stuff.
Okay, so you did that by sending out survey forms and just making sure you know what you're getting into before you start the development process.
Exactly. It's important to understand your demographic before you go ahead and develop anything, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now getting into like the technicalities of it, when you started developing your app, what were some of the tools or the software that you used? Because most of the people in the app development space use Flutter, which makes most sense. So what is something that you use to build your app that you would then launch on the App Store?
So the tools and technologies we mainly use were, like you said, Flutter is a great tech tool because, or technology, especially because it gives you cross-platform like capabilities where you're able to produce unified code for both iOS and Android, meaning you're able to attain both groups of users. And other than that, we mainly use a Firebase backend and Vercel as well as Next.js for the server.
Right, and you also have your website now, so that was hard coded as well.
Oh yes, that was coded through Next.js, correct.
Okay, right. So can you tell me a little bit more about the working of your app in terms of a user when they get on the platform? How does your app show the users opportunities that align with their interests? Like, is it because of it uses an algorithm to see what they interact with the most, or do you only see posts from people you follow? How does that work?
So essentially, the platform works very similar to other social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Essentially, when you sign up for an account, you're prompted to enter your interests. This could be technology, business, art, economics, any sort of field, any sort of topic that you're interested in. what we do then is that on posts that individuals create, there's tags, and tags could be like summer programs, they could be tech, they could be business, anything along those lines as well. What we do then is we match people's tags to the interests that they provided, and the goal is to provide them content that they've specifically mentioned that they're interested in, to tailor the content they see towards them, to provide them a personalized feed. So that's the first thing they see when they open up the platform. We also put out content that tends to get a lot of likes, a lot of comments, a lot of engagements and interactions, just because that from there we can tell this is high quality content that's beneficial to the user base as a whole. It might be beneficial to the individual user. Outside of the personalized feed, we have an explore page where you can essentially explore opportunities, explore content that comes out there. And this is essentially what we use to broaden your horizons, right? The feed pages to tailor towards your current interests, the explore pages to expand your interests. We have an opportunities page where we have internships from reputed companies such as Audible. And we have on your profile, you can set up a bunch of other things such as your bio, the initiatives you're working on, and your awards, achievements, your education. You can connect with students from your own school through the education feature. So this is something Yash can go into as well, but there's a lot of different factors that I'd play here, and the goal is to provide users an opportunity to explore their interests, discover new interests, and find ways to impact their communities and the world around them.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yash, do you want to add something to that?
I think Aditya pretty much covered all the bases. But one thing that I did want to touch up on is constant notification, so that you're like getting the content that you need, because it's very important to give notifications to keep your users engaged. And the second thing was direct messaging, because on any social media platform, right, you're going to need some level of direct messaging, some capability of being able to message people, because when you can message people, it gives you that level of like, like that, like one-to-one connection, you know what I mean? So yeah, other than that, he got everything pretty much spot on.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you also launched the beta version of your platform prior to this. So what were some of the main inferences that you had from that launch? And then what were the changes that you made based on whatever you realized during that launch?
So a big part of our beta program was actually putting up surveys, right? Because like I said, the development cycle is consistently knowing about what your user wants and catering to your user. So during our beta phase, we set up a lot of forums asking for what features the users would like implemented and what current features that are in the app they'd like to see improvements on. And throughout like each week, so basically I think we launched the beta program in somewhere around October, if I remember correctly. And after that, each subsequent week or each subsequent 2 weeks, we would launch a new update where we would essentially like bring together new features or fix previous features upon the user's request. And we kept integrating through this life cycle up until February 7th, where we officially like launched the Revoteen app for public use for everybody. But yeah, a large part of the beta cycle was definitely trying to figure out what the users wanted. And I remember at one point in time, we actually had to like reorient the entire structure of the application, because we're like, okay, you know what, this completely just isn't working. Let's go ahead and refactor everything and start from the bottom, and let's see if we can do something better here. And in the end, it ended up working out perfectly. So, sometimes like when you're developing, you do need to make those like drastic changes, but you have to hope that like in the end, it all just pays off. And as long as the data that you've collected for the beta testing is accurate, then you should be good to go.
Yeah. Did you also infer any bugs, when you were on your beta phase for people who were using your apps, and how did you work through those technicalities?
Yeah, it's a great question. So bugs always. So anytime we launched any beta, there were so many bugs consistently. Like I can tell you, like even big companies such as Facebook, Instagram, they're still going to see bugs to this day, right? Because it's completely normal. So the big part of that is actually being able to delegate those bugs. And the way we did it is that we would have like I said, like the feedback forms where people would submit bugs. We would have personal testers testing the application to see if they could find bugs, and we would compile a list of bugs. But in order to make sure that the most important bugs were fixed first, we would have like priorities, right? You have P0, P1, P2, P3, P4, et cetera, right? P0 being highest priority, so on and so forth. Yeah. So that's the way we kind of categorize the bugs, and we made sure to categorize in that order, right? Because that as a result, we would make sure, okay, P0 bugs are going to be P0 to P3 are going to 100% be fixed by this update, and then P4 and P5 we can maybe put off a little bit later, So that was like the major goals that we pretty much had in terms of like bugs and fixing the bugs. Being able to prioritize and delegate the tasks accordingly to like each developer's strengths really helps to fix the bugs quickly. And there's always like the consistent issue of like merge conflicts when you're merging the branches together and whatnot. But like if you're coordinating properly, you should be able to get around that pretty well.
Right. So what is one of like the biggest change that you had to make during the process of like you said right now you had to like break it down and then go build back up. So what is one of the bugs that you think was the hardest for you to battle and like caused you to like restructure completely?
So that's a great question. In terms of bugs that caused us to restructure, I'm going to give you two. So I think I'll break it down into two different sections here. I think I'm gonna like explain the restructuring part first. This wasn't really a bug more so, but it was more so like conceptually what we were doing. We felt like it would be better to do something else instead. So it was a big thing about Explore. And our Explore page, what we noticed, it wasn't really that interactive. We weren't able to really get users to get onto Explore and consistently stay there, right? So what we did is we ended up changing up the Explore algorithm completely to ensure that different things were weighted differently, so that users would it'd be more tailored to users, and as a result, they'd be more inclined to explore it. And the second thing that we did is we implemented like searching, so that you're easily able to search across different things and like find different people on the Explore. And we refactored like Feed and Explore both a little bit, because on Feed we added something called suggested users, where users would then have the ability to, like, when you're new to the platform, right, you want to know who to follow, right? You want to know how you can expand your connections and stuff. So we ended up adding some suggested users at the top, and these suggested users were selected based upon your own personal interests. That way you're only being able to connect with users that had your own interests, and as a result possibly form valuable connections with them. In terms of bugs, I know for a while a big bug that we had was the bug with messaging. So we had a messaging issue where we weren't able to quickly, order the messages. So if you notice on any like live chat nowadays, if you text anywhere, right, the chat goes directly to the top, right? So we were able to step by step, like a lot of debugging. This went on for like days and days and days. I remember this was a very grueling process, but like step by step, we were able to debug it, and like a lot of like VS Code tools, a lot of personal experience, a lot of just time, work, effort was finally able to get us through that, large bug. But we were eventually able to do it, and we were able to fix the chat issue. So those are that's the biggest prominent bug that I can remember, at least.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And can you also talk about something that you want to implement in the future for Revoteen? Like any new features that you think would help your platform grow, or like any vision that you have?
Right now, our goal is maximizing the user experience, and this is done through a lot of ways. One big thing is improving the quality of content, quantity of content, and building a stronger community through the platform, which is the ultimate goal of Revoteen. So first off, just strengthening the algorithms. This is dependent on, user content interactions that are coming out there. Being able to serve a more personalized feed to students is one big thing. And one more thing is the expectancies of students when they come onto the platform, right? When you look at teenagers, especially when the social media platforms are used to using Snapchat, Instagram, all of these platforms, they have near perfect functionality where everything's very fast, essentially just perfect, right? From what you expect from a platform. And this expectancy carries over onto something like Revoteen because it's a social media platform. So you have that stigma, or like whatever is expected from it. And then from our point of view, that's something we need to work on. That's something as we move forward, we want to improve the user experience, improve it to make it something similar to Instagram, something similar to all these other social media platforms, where it's very fast, very easy to use, and it's something that they can just quickly get a hang of and then get as much benefit from it as they possibly can.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. And do you want to tell us a little bit about the process of, like, you now have a lot of users on your platform, right? So what was the process of getting those users? And also, do you face any bugs when it comes to like traffic, or like how it in terms of like dealing with the number of people that interact on your platform?
I can talk user acquisition, and I believe Yash can talk a bit more on the bugs and tech side. So user acquisition is mainly done through marketing on social media. So as you know, social media is huge among students, and Instagram especially, that's where we've built our biggest base of 2,600 plus students. LinkedIn, we've built a base of over 800. What we do on these social media platforms is our goal is to build a very strong community of students on these platforms. And what we do is we post about opportunities, we post with student takeovers where they talk about their experiences. We talk to college students to get their insights, post them out there. The goal is to build a strong community on these social media accounts and then have that transfer over onto the platform. What we also do is we do a weekly email newsletter that we send out to students, and this has opportunities from across the world. This could be internships, summer programs, all sorts of things, right? And this motivates students to participate more on the Revoteen app, because that's just a snippet of what you can get through the Revoteen platform. And that's just our main ways of user acquisition. And that's what we've seen in our success so far. And Yash can talk tech side.
Right.
So for the tech side, in terms of traffic, definitely. So, recently we've been focusing mainly on the user experience, like Aditya mentioned, right? And with more users means you have to handle the caching, the other, like all the other stuff that comes with it, right? Optimizing speeds and stuff for the user. Because like Aditya mentioned, users are so used to seeing Instagram, Facebook, all these apps that load so quickly, right? But obviously the people that have been working on this, they've have like they're like getting paid like obviously a lot of money and like a lot of experience and a lot of like college knowledge and education and stuff. So like they have a lot of experience with that. But versus for somebody like us, where we have to rely on these like giant tech companies to pretty much do the cloud part for us, we've been pretty much optimizing as much as possible with caching, client side, server side as much as possible. But I think one thing that we definitely wanted to get out for this next update was optimizing as much of the app as possible and ensuring to get like increase like speed up the load time so that they're not as slow and that users are more like likely to spend more time on the platform because they're more accustomed to slowing or like lower load time stuff, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely we've seen some like jitters with here and there with a lot of traffic issues, but yeah, not anything that's terrible.
Yeah, okay, great. That works. So yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for your time and also for giving us these amazing insights. Your platform sounds something that I think was definitely needed. It's shocking no one's capitalized on it, and I'm definitely going to be a user. So thank you so much, and it's so nice talking to you today.